Hello. I was just about to start doing a live webinar to a Facebook group of peers, SLPs. So I'm recording here and doing it here. Where am I from? Oh, thank you for asking, Linda Miller. Well, I am from Detroit, Michigan. What up, though? And I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. We don't have a saying from here, the Queen City. But yeah, I'm from Detroit, west side of Detroit. I went to Cass Tech, if I have any fellow native Detroiters out there in here. What age do I work with? All right, so the age that I work with elementary school currently. I have worked with pre-K all the way to high school for direct speech therapy services. Here is my YouTube channel. I'm gonna post it in the comments here. And I don't know if this is gonna stay somewhere or if it's just gonna float up on the screen like with the other comments. Let's see. Oh, okay. Oh, can I pin it? Oh, I can pin it. Oh, I pinned it. I feel like Babyface and Teddy Riley. Like, okay, now do what now? Pin? How do I pin it? How do I what? Okay, so okay, Chicago. Well, Chicago, that's a whole different, that's a ball game up there. Okay, so yeah, I work with currently elementary age. I was in pre-K, middle school, and high school for the last few years before that. And I just switched out to just elementary school, kindergarten through 5th grade right now. And I work in the school setting. I also work in an intermediate care facility. You know, they used to call it, well, it is a group home, but it's a residential facility. But there I do consultative and bedside feeding. I don't do any direct therapy. Yeah. So here is my official introduction. My name is Kendra T. Allison. They call me Kendra T in the streets. No, just my friends. But Kendra T. Allison, I am, as I said, from Detroit, but I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's where I'm licensed and living and practicing in North Carolina. I have been working as an SLP for about 15 years now. I went to school in Michigan, Western Michigan University. Go Broncos, fight on. And I saw one of my fellow schoolmates is going to be doing a webinar here with a sister soon, Treasure. She's a treasure. And she's a doctor, so that'll be exciting. So yeah, I went to Western Michigan University. I've been practicing for about 15 years. I work for a private practice here in North Carolina, but I work in a school district, contracted to a school district and a residential care facility. I've done home health in the past, years ago. I thought, funny story, I guess, you know how you make plans for yourself and then life takes you in a different direction? I thought that when I was in grad school, I wanted to work in a medical setting, do swallowing assessments, have a white doctor's lab coat and be running around a hospital, like feeding assessments, stat, and things like that. And when I did my internship in grad school, I liked both internships, the one in the hospital and the school, but I also wanted to have flexibility and variety. I didn't want to just work in one setting. So I found the company that I work for and I took the job with them because it was offering flexibility and variety in different work settings. So I ended up working in school and then working in school and home health. And then I learned from doing that I did not like home health. And I did school and residential care facility. And I learned from doing that I really like school and residential care facility because that kind of the residential intermediate care for, group home type place, that keeps the medical side of what we do. My skills a little bit sharp there because I'm doing bedside feedings and the texture and consistency recommendations and reading and interpreting modified barium swallowing studies. So that keeps that part kind of sharp. And then I like the school setting because I like working with kids. They're cool for short amounts of time. and it keeps me young and youthful working with the kids. You know, I see the teeny boppers and the little ones are getting into. And I also like that I can be there, honestly, be there all day and get paid, whether the kids are absent or not, as long as all of them aren't absent. So I have Juliet invited me to do this because I had posted a few of my YouTube videos in the sisters group. And I started doing the YouTube videos because I have been doing telepractice, teletherapy, First, let me address the different terms. There are so many different names for it. And I found that, you know, we call it telepractice and know what that means. Other disciplines call it teletherapy or telehealth a little bit more, but even though I don't think telepractice is a standard term that we use SLPs, because that is varied based on where we are, where we work and everything. But I found that when I was starting a telepractice program in my school district, that when I said telepractice, people didn't know what I was talking about. So I would have to explain it. Fast forward a few months from that time to when the school shutdown is happening and we're all having to kind of scramble and start learning and figuring out how to do telepractice services, the word virtual became a very popular word. It's a buzzword, you know? So now people recognize the word virtual and understand what that means a little bit more than they used to, but definitely more than telepractice. So I just found that using the word virtual speech therapy is a little bit more straightforward to my parents and to other disciplines that I work with in the schools. So I call it virtual speech therapy for that reason. And then sometimes teletherapy. It's the tele part that throws me, because tele to me means telephone, and we're doing more than that. It's more dynamic with the camera and the audio. Okay, I see a question here about platform and materials, adapting materials. All right, great question, Hope. I hope I can answer it. So I started doing telepractice basically earlier this school year because I live in Charlotte, but I work far out in a rural county and I was over the drive. I've been doing it for the whole time I've been working, about 15 years. And I wanted to kind of cut that down. So I talked to my company and they say, hey, figure out what you need to figure out. Let us know what you find. I figured out and did research and did a bunch of testing and trials and wrote a proposal and got approved to do a telepractice program in my school district with my school as the starter school and then spreading it out to the other schools in the county. So that happened, got that approved in January. I got all my testing and done. I had trained all my students. I had trained the teachers, the teaching, like my whole program and everything, right? We had done 1 or 2 days with me off site in therapy. And then boom, here comes the COVID and then a shutdown. So I was a little ahead of the game in that. It didn't take much to just kind of convert everybody over to doing virtual speech therapy. Yeah, virtual therapy. Like I said, it's a little bit more understandable, right, Diamond? Yes. All right, so now I have a question from Hope. What platform do I use and how do I adapt my materials? Oh, FYI, y'all, I'm also recording for my YouTube channel because I didn't know if Facebook would record automatically. So that's why I'm looking here and there. So the platform that I currently use is Google Meets. And the reason is because my school district wanted us to use it. That's it. When I was experimenting and looking into different platforms, I was doing all this research. And at the time when I was doing my research in October, November, December, Google Meets wasn't an option. Zoom wasn't an option because the HIPAA compliancy that wasn't available unless you pay a grip of money for it. And so I was using TheraPlatform, which is a standalone platform for virtual therapy services. And they have speech OT, psych, like all these other different disciplines can use it. But you set it up, it's a portal, you have a URL, which is a website, and you put your kids in there, and it's a platform just for virtual therapy. And I liked using that. It is a subscription service. But once the shutdown started and more people were starting to do virtual therapy, then I found that it was getting kind of glitchy, and just, it was, again, more to explain to my students' parents than, say, Google Meets. Because then my school district we had the G Suite and do all that. And so they started saying, hey, here, we have G Suite, G Meets, use Meets, use Meets, use Meets. And people were still kind of like, I'm going to use Zoom anyway. But then the Zoom bombing scandal started happening, where Zoom sessions were getting hacked, and with inappropriate material, inappropriate people. And of course, if you're working with kids, you got to protect the babies, so you can't have an inappropriate Zoom room account be hacked. So that's why I use Google Meets, which I'm not mad at it. I don't mind it. It is very easy to use. I did a couple videos about that. So on my YouTube channel, let me scroll, make sure I didn't miss any questions. Okay, so Hope. Oh, and Hope, your next question about adapting materials. I don't talk a whole lot about materials on my YouTube channel videos because I don't do a whole lot with materials, honestly. I used to plan and do a whole lot more than I do now. But for virtual, I've been using boom cards. Backing up just a little bit to earlier this year and end of last year, I started incorporating more technology into my therapy sessions. So I had started using boom cards for my speech therapy sessions, on site at school. So I just continue to use that as one of my therapy materials, and I get different decks of cards. Boom cards is a deck of cards system where you buy points and then you use those points to buy the materials. So I have articulation decks, I have some language decks, and I just kind of get the ones based on what I need for my students specifically. So that's one thing I use. Another thing I use is PDF files. On Teachers Pay Teachers, they have a lot of resources that are print or no print materials that you could just use on your computer or on your iPad, but you don't have to print them to use. Those are basically all PDF files. So I use some of the ones that I had just acquired over the last few years, and then a couple of things that I also make, PDFs and documents that I also make. And then I use myself. I do a lot of dancing. I got dance fever. And I make up a lot of little rhymes and jingles that might be judged harshly by adults, but kids find it fun. I'm seeing some support here for boom cards. Yes. And the virtual therapy. That term. So adaptive materials. Also, another thing that I try to have at hand is just a bag of manipulatives or something like that. But here at the house, I had a bag of fake food and dishes, and Mr. Potato Head and his parts and her parts. And I don't even have books here, but there are lots of materials out there. So I have those things close at hand where I can just grab some stuff and use it, as a manipulative, because as I've mentioned in one of my videos talking about the materials, the self-contained kids, they don't really respond to the digital materials that much. The ones that I have respond most to actual items and me singing songs. I see, okay, Jamie is saying that she uses boom cards and likes the fast play option. Yeah, the fast play option is cool because you can set up a login for the student to use a PIN number and just be able to get into a deck of cards that you've assigned them. So I've used that option as well, especially when I was using Google Classroom. I haven't been using Google Classroom so much since going 100% virtual. So video number 1, I've labeled the titles of the videos. Video number 1 talks about 4 basics, and that's where I talk about the basics, equipment, because your equipment is important. You need a little bit more than just your phone, although you can use your phone, But from our side, the work side, it is better to have a computer, of course. So that, some other little tools that I use to set up my area, my virtual office. I talk about the platform that I use, at that time when I made that video, I think I was just using TheraPlatform, but I knew I was going to be switching over to Google Meets. So I talk about clothes because what you wear on camera can be important. I don't say that much about it. And your environment, again, your environment is a part of your virtual office, and that's also important. Sometimes we take for granted how much ambient noise is going on around us, and how much of that is picked up by the computer microphones and everything. Like for now, my example, my dog is eating his dinner. I don't know if y'all hear that or not. But I'm out in the open right now, but I would try to do therapy in a closed off room. That's why I do it. So that's what I talk about in video 1, 4 basics. Okay. Tavidia said that my pen is there. Great, thank you for that confirmation. And BB, that's cute. BB says, do you use any interactive activities where the student is able to manipulate or respond on their end? Great question. When I was using TheraPlatform had that capability of two-way whiteboard and two-way use of, screen manipulation. And if the students were using their school-issued Chromebooks, like when I first started doing virtual services with my students in school, then yeah, they could move things around. They could play games as a reward and everything. Now that I'm having to use Google Meets because of my school district, and the kids are at home using either their parents' phone or their whatever device, I don't really try to focus too hard on making it interactive. There's a couple of steps you have to, oops, don't shake the table. There's a couple of steps you have to set up in order for materials to be interactive on the other side. And I don't feel like looking into all that and setting it up and then having the parents, I have 40 something parents. I don't know how many, but it's a lot. And that's just something else for me to teach them how to do and get them to do on their end and set up. So I don't do interactive. Again, I just use a lot of my own gesticulations, and I make them use their words to tell me what they want to use on the screen. So if we're doing an activity or we're doing a story retelling for the old lady who swallowed whatever she swallowed a lot, then I'll move my mouse over it and say, all right, when you want to tell her what to swallow next, you say stop. And then, I let them tell me and use their words, and then I'll do it. And I'll make a big thing of what they chose and what they did. Jamie says, I have a few silly headbands I use to keep interest of the kids. Unicorns, frogs, butterflies. I also stay really animated. Oh yeah, headbands. That's a good idea. How did you use Google Classroom more before school was closed compared to your virtual therapy? Well, I set up my Google Classroom for each school, and I put my students in it for each school. When we were doing speech sessions in person, because I had so many kids, that I had to group them up, and I did stations. So I would set up a Chromebook as a Chromebook station, and then the regular paper, pencil, type sensory activity is one station, another station, another station. So I had 4 stations set up, one of them or 2 of them maybe being a Chromebook station with the Google Classroom. So I would have the students learn how to get into the class, get into their Chromebook, get into the classroom, get into my classroom, get into their list of activities, and find what I had already assigned for them to do, so that as they rotated around different stations in the room, they would eventually rotate to the Chromebook station and then get into their their assignment and use it there. Now that I'm doing virtual services, I am doing one-on-one, and so it's just an extra step to go to the classroom to get the activities. From what I've been told, putting things in the classroom doesn't count as a session. And again, it's another step for the parents to do. So I just haven't really focused on getting parents to go into Google Classroom and get into my list of activities and everything. And then since we're doing one-on-one and I do shortened sessions, I don't use Google Classroom because I already had my activities kind of organized in certain kind of ways. And I do talk about setting up your activities and organizing them before each session in one video that is video number 3, Virtual Speech Therapy, 4 session models, where I did a mock session with 4 things to do before and during your session. And then also in video number 8, where I did a mock session on Zoom. And I call that one my Star Wars mock session because it was with my nephew who loves Star Wars. We talked about it a couple times. And then also, so that's kind of where I talked about doing this session and the materials. Okay, I hope I answered your question, Wanda. Jamie, how involved are your parents? Views on parent involvement. When I was scheduling and setting up my virtual sessions, I made a survey and I sent that out to all of my parents. One of the questions on there was, are you going to be available during, next to, nearby, in the area of the session? To put it out there to them that this is what I'm expecting for you to be there, girl. Okay? And so also in that survey, I explained virtual services. I explained what what we need to have, and I got information from the parents. I did a video talking about using those forms, using Google Forms to schedule by doing a survey. That is number 5, video number 5 on my YouTube channel. And I also talked more about it in video number 7, which was about scheduling all those kids using Google Calendar. And then there's more details about the survey that I used. So on my YouTube channel, videos number 5 and 7. All right, back to answering that question. Parent involvement. So they already expected to be, they're expected to be there or around, especially for the younger kids. And I haven't spoken specifically to the parents about like, once they're like, I need you here, you have to be here. But what I do is when I'm in a session, I'll say, hey, so-and-so, how you doing? Got your mom there? Hey, Pam. All right, thanks for getting them in. All right, let's go ahead and get started. And I have found that being forced to do virtual services this way at home, everybody being forced to do it, has really been a good thing for parents, because parents get to see what and how we do it, and they get to see what and how they can do it at home. So a lot of times when I'm working with the kid and I'm giving them the strategies and we're doing things, I'm also narrating and explaining it for the parent, who I know is just right over here. And I'm saying the reason why we're doing this is because I'm training you to be able to listen and hear this. The reason why we're doing this is because I added this. And Mom, they can do this thing really well. And I'll tell the kid, listen to your mom when she's giving you a model, just like I do, to show you how to say something. Listen to your mom, because she can teach you too. So the parent involvement has been pretty great. And even those parents who, since I work all in a school setting, I hadn't met, and I'm in 2 new schools this year, I hadn't met all of my parents yet. So for the ones who I hadn't really met before, it's really helped us to get to know each other and bridge understanding and mutual intentions. Like, we're both here to help the kid. Now that you know me and you know what I'm here to do and how I do it, like, you see, I care. I'm trying to get the same thing that you are, is get this kid's communication skills functional or age appropriate. And so it's really helped for that. And it's really helped with communication. So then having starting the virtual sessions, when students are now having their IEP meetings, the parents are familiar with how to do that, because it's the same platform you've been doing for therapy. So I think they kind of feel like, oh, okay, it's one less thing for me to struggle and try to figure out. I can do this meetings. I've already been doing this platform, using this platform. Yes. So I found that it's been really good. And also for planning for the upcoming IEP meetings. Hey, Mom, we've been working together and doing this. You've seen and hear what they can do. Because sometimes parents don't believe you when you tell them, Oh no, they can do that. Oh, they can do that. And the kid doesn't do that at home. The parents see proof. Oh, they can do that. But I can talk to the parents directly about my plans and my recommendations for the upcoming meeting. It's more direct contact. Okay. BB makes sense. Yeah. The virtual, the classroom thing. Yeah. Jamie, headbands are a great idea. Okay. Yep. Got some agreement on that, Jamie. Wanda, just an FYI. Wanda says, just an FYI, our district is using Microsoft Teams for virtual therapy, and the whiteboard can be shared with students for them to write and draw responses. So Microsoft Teams is a platform that I have access to because I work for a company and they use Microsoft Teams, and I had entertained that as a potential platform when I was, creating my program for my school district. This was, like I said, well before the actual shutdown. And so I had looked into Microsoft Teams. I didn't really like it for virtual therapy for a caseload of kids. And so, yeah, I do know that is a good feature that they have, and I appreciate it. But for me, I just didn't feel like it fit my needs. The main thing with choosing any platform is if you have the freedoms to choose the platform you want, just choose something that you like and that you feel comfortable using. I did have the options to choose between using Microsoft Teams or TheraPlatform, or I think those were my two main choices at that time. Then once the shutdowns happened and the HIPAA constrictions got less constricted, then I could do more, and so I explored Zoom and Google Meets. But the Google Meets, like I said, is what my school county is using, so that's what they want me to use. But yeah, Microsoft Teams, boom.